They said I was too sensitive. But this house didn't come from feelings. It came from grit. The first thing I did after unlocking the front door was run my hand along the cool, smooth wall. Paint still fresh. Floors unscuffed. It didn't smell like anything yet. No candles, no detergent. No one's bad memories clinging to the curtains. Just quiet. Clean. Mine. Rachel was already dragging boxes in from the trunk of my car, her messy ponytail bouncing behind her. This one's labeled kitchen stuff. But it's half books. You're impossible. I like cookbooks, I replied, but my voice was soft. Even in my own home, I spoke like someone might shush me. The house was small, a single-story craftsman with a narrow porch and a fenced-in yard that barely held a grill and 2 chairs. But it was mine. 8 years of saying no to vacations, working overtime, learning how to do my own taxes and paint my own walls. Every cracked cuticle, every lonely night, every dollar I didn't spend added up to this shelter I built alone. As Rachel unpacked glassware, I carefully unwrapped the framed photo of Evelyn, my grandmother, and set it gently on the mantel. Her smile was lopsided stubborn, the kind that said, "You don't owe anyone your peace." She died when I was 25, but her voice still walked beside mine. "You should throw a housewarming," Rachel said from behind a mountain of bubble wrap. "It'd be good for you." I didn't answer right away. I stared at the wall above the couch, wondering where the art should go. My fingers traced the edge of a frame. She continued. "You finally got a place to show off. Your mom would lose her mind over the backsplash alone. That made me smile. A little. She'll probably call it sterile," I said, "or say it needs more personality." Rachel laughed. "She'd say your soul needs more personality." I shrugged and she saw it. The stiffness in my shoulders. "Melissa," she said gently, "you don't have to invite them. But maybe you want to." I hated how true that was. We kept unpacking. The afternoon light shifted from golden to dusky. I sent the text sometime around 6:30 hands, trembling more than I wanted to admit. Nothing formal, just a small housewarming. Sunday afternoon. I didn't expect replies. As I folded the last moving blanket, I remembered the last time I saw my mother. She stood in the doorway of my old apartment, arms crossed, eyes flicking across the walls like she was grading them. "You never make anything feel like home," she'd said. "You're so difficult to connect with." And then she left, leaving me to sit alone, in a silence thick with shame. Now I stood in a space of my own, surrounded by cardboard and clean walls, and stared at the plaque Rachel had jokingly stuck on the mailbox, Carter Residence. The name sat there so confidently, like I hadn't spent years wondering if I deserved to keep it. The air was still, my chest tight. Then my phone buzzed. "Mom, we'll come. Just don't make it a whole spectacle." That was her way of accepting the invitation and already rewriting the rules. They always said we're family. We help each other. They never said I'd be the only one paying. I sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by half-open boxes and the hum of a refrigerator that still sounded foreign. My fingers paused over a cardboard flap labeled in black marker, "Roof Repair 2021. I knew exactly what it was. I didn't need to open it to remember the sting. That winter, Mom had called just after midnight. "It's leaking right above the kitchen," she said. "Your father slipped on the wet floor." There was no preamble, no question, just a tone that said, "You know what to do." I wired her $1,500 the next morning. No thank you. No follow-up. Just silence. And another month of ramen noodles on my end. Now, in this new home that smelled like paint and anxiety, I finally opened the box. Inside, a faded receipt from the roofing company, some handwritten notes from Mom about additional costs, and a photograph that didn't belong, Amber's kids on the porch of the old house holding snow cones. I exhaled slowly, closing the box and pushing it aside. One memory at a time. Tonight, I was trying to decide which pictures to hang. There weren't many. I'd lost the habit of taking photos over the years. Too many holidays spent working or pretending. But tucked in a manila folder, I found a few. One of me with Evelyn at her garden, another with Rachel at a terrible karaoke night, and one more I didn't expect. A copy of Amber's divorce settlement invoice. I hadn't meant to keep it, but something in me had refused to throw it away. Her desperate text came back like a voice in my ear. Melissa, I'm drowning. I can't lose the kids. I need $5,000 by Friday. Please, you're the only one I can count on. I sent it. Of course I did. And once she had custody and the ink dried on the court order, Amber vanished. No thank you. No update, just unfriended me on Facebook a week later. Family. My phone buzzed. A text from Amber as if conjured from my thoughts. Amber, Mom says 3 p.m. Don't stress about food. Just don't make it weird. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command dressed in familiarity. A second later, the phone rang. Mom. I hesitated before answering. Hi, I said, trying to keep my voice level. Melissa, she said briskly, like checking a box. We're coming tomorrow. But for heaven's sake, don't make it one of your emotional things. It's just a housewarming, I replied. Good. Keep it simple. Don't start speeches or dragging old stuff up. Your sister has enough stress. I almost asked what I had, but I swallowed it. After she hung up, I stared at my phone. I opened Instagram, not really sure why. Maybe looking for something neutral. What I found was worse. Mom's latest post from a week ago. A photo of her Amber and Amber's 3 kids in matching outfits, all beaming outside an ice cream shop. Caption, family is everything. No mention of me. Again. The cold from that caption slipped under my skin like a draft through a cracked window. I walked into the room I had set aside as a guest bedroom, and quietly closed the door. This room would stay untouched tomorrow. There would be no shared laughter, no sleeping bags for nieces, no extra towels laid out. It wasn't a guest room. It was mine, my space. The photo with Evelyn went up on the hallway wall. I straightened the frame twice. Then my phone buzzed again. Rachel, heads up. Just talk to Amber. Be ready. They're not coming for the potato salad. They walked in like they still owned my weekends, my money, and my silence. The door had barely clicked open before my mother brushed past me. She didn't remove her shoes, didn't pause to look around, didn't say, "Congratulations." Her eyes moved over the hallway like a real estate agent inspecting a listing. "Oh," she muttered. "A bit tight, isn't it?" I smiled tightly, holding the door open for Amber and her 3 kids. The youngest trailed behind, dragging a stuffed rabbit by one ear. Amber didn't look at me, just dropped her purse on the entry bench and sighed loudly. "God, finally," she said. "This heat is insane. Hope you've got something cold." Rachel appeared beside me, carrying a tray of lemonade. Her smile was too wide. "Well, if it isn't the royal delegation." Amber raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. She plopped herself onto the couch, stretching out like she'd been invited to stay the weekend. "This is comfy. Definitely enough space for the 4 of us." The youngest climbed into her lap. "Mommy, is this our new house?" Amber laughed lightly, brushing the girl's bangs out of her face. "Maybe. Wouldn't that be nice?" I blinked. I wasn't sure I'd heard her right. Dad entered last, moving slower than usual, his gait stiff. He gave me a nod, nothing more, and headed straight for the armchair. Rachel leaned toward me. "Remember when I joked they thought your house was community property?" I tried to laugh. Couldn't. I walked into the kitchen to check the dessert spread. The lemon bars were sweating under the cling wrap. The cookies looked untouched. Nobody had brought a gift, but they brought their appetites and opinions. Denise circled the dining nook like she was taking measurements. No formal dining room. That's unfortunate. Amber could have hosted Thanksgiving here. I turned toward her. I didn't realize I was offering. She waved the comment off with a tight smile. "Well, we all make sacrifices for family." Rachel saw it the way my jaw tightened, the way I touched the edge of the countertop, like I needed something to steady me. She reached for a cookie, muttering, "This party has an expiration date." Amber's kids began darting between the hallway and the back door. I heard someone knock over a small ceramic planter in the guest bathroom. No one apologized. In the living room, Amber was showing her daughter around. "This one's my favorite room," she said, pointing toward the hallway I had reserved for my own space. "That might be your room soon, baby." I froze. Rachel's eyes met mine across the room. Did she just... I heard it, I whispered. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the floors. It should have been warm, golden celebratory. Instead, the walls felt closer. The house felt less mine. I walked out to the backyard, needing air. From there, I could still hear the laughter, the sounds of Denise unpacking more judgmental sighs, Amber rustling through the hallway. Then Mom's voice cut through it all, calm, measured, practiced. Melissa, we need to talk in private about the house. It's just temporary, Mom said. You can afford to help your sister. The house had emptied out, but its silence wasn't peaceful. It was charged heavy like the quiet after a slammed door, the kind that made your skin prickle. I was standing in the kitchen rinsing out glasses that no one bothered to take to the sink. The tile beneath me gleamed under the cool white light from the overhead fixture. It was the only light still on. The rest of the house had dimmed, like it too was bracing for something. Mom appeared behind me without warning, leaning against the counter like she belonged there. She's going through a hard time, she began. I didn't look up. She's got 3 kids. Rent keeps rising. And you? She paused, her voice tilting upward like a compliment might slip through. You have space now. I turned off the tap. Mom. She wouldn't ask if it weren't serious. She interrupted. It's just temporary. I dried my hands slowly, deliberately. From the corner of my eye, I saw Amber walk in arms folded tone, already defensive. It's not like I'm trying to take over, she said. It's just until I find something more stable. The lease is up and they want to raise it again. I can't afford that with daycare and groceries and... You could have told me this earlier. I said not unkindly. Not like this. Not at my housewarming. You weren't answering my texts, she shot back. I was trying to enjoy one day, I said. Amber scoffed. You think I enjoy asking you for help? I turned to face them fully. This house isn't a spare room. I built this every tile, every brick, every step of it on my own. And that's exactly why you can help, Mom said sharply. You're stable. You've always been the responsible one. I laughed. Quiet, bitter. No. I've always been the one who doesn't make a scene. Amber looked toward the hallway. It's just 1 year. You could rent something nearby, maybe even the old place on 5th. You said you hated the commute anyway. I stared at her. You want me to move out of my own home. No one's forcing you, she said too quickly. It's a choice. Mom nodded already, packaging the whole thing as settled. You won't even notice them. And it'll give you time to travel. Breathe a little. You've been working nonstop. Don't make this about self-care, I said flatly. Dad was in the doorway now, arms crossed, eyes downcast. He didn't speak, just stood there like a placeholder for support that would never come. I leaned against the counter, heart pounding. This is your idea of family, I asked. Mom tilted her head. Don't be dramatic. We help each other. That's what family does. No, I said. I help? You take? That's when Rachel entered. She had gone to her car for something and came back to this 3 family members aligned across the kitchen like an ambush with cake crumbs still on their fingers. What's going on? She asked, looking between us. No one answered. Mom Amber finally said, Can we just... Mom lifted a hand, silencing her. It's not your concern, Rachel. This is a family matter. Rachel looked at me, eyebrows raised. You good. I didn't know how to answer that. I stared at the floor, then back up at their faces, each one more familiar than fair. My throat was tight. Rage flickered, but something softer overrode exhaustion. I'll think about it, I said quietly, but don't push me. And then I walked out, leaving the kitchen lights on behind me, just so the silence would have somewhere to land. It was supposed to be my homecoming, but I felt like a squatter in my own house. Monday morning arrived without mercy. A low, colorless sky hung over Charlotte, pressing shadows into every corner of my newly painted home. I shuffled to the kitchen barefoot, every step echoing in the silence. The refrigerator buzzed like it was trying to fill the void, but it only made the air heavier. Rachel was already at the kitchen island, hunched over, her phone, lips pressed into a hard line. Her coffee sat untouched. They posted something she said without looking up. My heart lurched. Who? She turned the screen to face me. Amber's Facebook profile. The post had gone up the night before during the 1 hour I'd spent staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was overreacting. It was a picture of my house, filtered warm, as if it had been wrapped in a sepia-toned hug. The caption read, "New beginning for my little family. So grateful for second chances and the people who believe in us." "People think you gave them the house," Rachel said. The comments were pouring in. "So proud of you." Amber Melissa always had such a big heart. They deserve this. After everything. A few hearts, a couple of prayer hands, and more likes than any post I'd ever made in my life. I reached for my phone with trembling fingers. Notifications swarmed my lock screen texts from coworkers, extended family, even a former professor. "So generous of you. You're an inspiration. Didn't know you were moving again. Proud of you." Mel, none of them asked if it was true. They just assumed. "I didn't say yes," I muttered. Rachel glanced at me sharply. "But you didn't say no either. You said you'd think about it." "I didn't know thinking would become a public relations campaign," I said bitterly. "They planned this," Rachel whispered. "They made you host the party, then spun it into a press release." I walked into the living room, sinking into the couch like it might hold the answers. My house looked different now. The walls felt tighter. Even the photos I had just hung looked like they belonged to someone else's life. Then the phone rang. The screen said, "Evelyn." My grandmother. "Hi, Grandma," I said, voice barely above a whisper. There was a pause, then her voice steady, southern sharp as a pin through fabric. I saw what Amber posted. "Baby, are you still the one holding that deed?" "I am," I replied. "But are you holding on to it, or just letting it sit in your hands?" I didn't respond. "Melissa." She said, "This house is more than lumber and nails. It's your spine. You worked for it, fought for it. Don't let anyone make you feel like it's charity to keep what's yours." I felt tears burn the edges of my vision. "Do you remember what I said when you were 12? And you gave your birthday cake to Amber without a slice for yourself?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see. I said, "Kindness without boundaries isn't kindness. It's surrender." When she hung up, I sat frozen. The air around me buzzed like it had taken on a pulse. Rachel came in holding her phone. "You need to see this." Amber had posted again. This time, a video of her kids jumping on my backyard trampoline, something I hadn't even unboxed yet. The caption read, "Getting comfy in our new space." The comments were worse this time. I cried watching this. "You're both amazing sisters. This is what family looks like. Melissa, thank you for being an angel." I felt sick. Then the phone buzzed again this time, from someone I barely remembered, Claire, an old college friend. Her message read, "Is it true you're giving up your house?" Brave move. I could never. I wanted to scream. Rachel slammed her hand on the table. "You are letting them rewrite the truth." "You must take back your right to have a voice. I don't want to cause drama," I whispered. "They already did that for you," she shot back. "The only difference is right now, they're the ones holding the pen." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged onto Facebook. The banner at the top read, "New beginning for my little family." Amber's words, "My house." Over 360 likes. My finger hovered over the keyboard, but I still said nothing. They didn't just want my house. They wanted to rewrite the story with me as the villain. Sunday morning arrived with a soft drizzle tapping at the kitchen windows. The light outside was muted, like the sky had forgotten how to be bright. I sat at the table in my flannel robe, clutching a mug that had long gone cold. Across from me, Rachel scrolled furiously on her phone, her jaw-tight eyes sharp with the kind of anger I couldn't even summon for myself. "They're calling you selfish," she said. "Some woman from Amber's yoga group commented that your heart must be made of stone." I didn't flinch, not outwardly. Amber's post had dropped the night before. I hadn't seen it right away. I was too busy trying to breathe in a house that suddenly felt smaller than my closet. But Rachel had sent it to me with a single message. "You need to shut this down." I didn't know how. The post showed my porch, my welcome mat, My wreath. Amber stood at the top step, her 3 children beside her, all smiling with unnerving innocence. The caption read like a Hallmark card dipped in syrup. When life knocks you down, sometimes an angel picks you up. Thank you to my big sister for opening her home and her heart to us. It's not just a roof, it's a second chance. Yes, be family first. Melissa. Strong. I'd reread it 10 times, each one making my skin crawl a little more. Amber had written it in a way that left no room for interpretation. To the public, I had agreed. I was the savior. She, the struggling single mom, finally catching a break. The comments poured in like confetti. You're so lucky to have her. This is what sisterhood is about. I hope she knows how lucky she is to have you, Amber. Not everyone would take in 3 kids. I wanted to scream. But what would I say? That none of it was true? That I hadn't agreed to anything? They wouldn't believe me. Not after the way Amber framed it. My phone buzzed again. I didn't look. I couldn't, Rachel finally snapped. You're letting her hijack your entire story. Melissa, people think you're a damn philanthropist. They think you have a mansion and no bills. What happens when you say no? Now you'll look like the one who changed her mind. I didn't agree, I said, but even I heard how weak it sounded. You didn't say no either. And there it was, the truth I didn't want to face. Amber had weaponized silence. It wasn't just social media. I'd received 2 texts from coworkers congratulating me on being an inspiration. A voicemail from my aunt asking when she could swing by the new family setup. And one message from a complete stranger, someone named Linda, who had the audacity to say, "Why hoard property when kids need stability?" I blinked at the screen numb. Rachel muttered something and started typing furiously. I'm writing a post. A real one. The truth. I'm tagging you and don't. She froze. Melissa, if I defend myself now, I become exactly what they expect. Bitter. Ungrateful. Mean. And staying silent makes you a doormat. I know. I stood and walked to the kitchen sink. The rain had picked up, tapping faster, harder, as if trying to drown the noise in my chest. I watched the trees sway in the distance, blurred through the droplets on the window. She's built a narrative, I whispered. And people want to believe it because it feels good. The poor mom, the generous sister. They want that more than they want truth. Rachel stood, her voice gentler now. So, what do? I reached for my phone, sat back down, and opened Facebook. My thumb hovered over Amber's post. I scrolled through the comments looking for anyone that questioned the story. There wasn't a single one. All praise, all applause. I went to my profile. The profile I hadn't touched in days. My face looked unfamiliar. The header was still the house, back when it felt like it belonged to me. I tapped through settings with trembling fingers. My chest tightened with each menu. And then I pressed deactivate account. Confirmation. Done. Silence. No more notifications. No more stranger inboxes. No more pretend smiles. My breath caught in my throat as the screen faded to black. It felt like closing a door from the inside while everyone else stayed out there waving, convinced I had gifted them the key. Rachel didn't speak. She sat down across from me watching. Her expression said everything: heartbreak and fury. And then my phone rang. Evelyn. I didn't hesitate. Grandma. You need to talk to me, she said calmly. And this time, don't lie to yourself. The line crackled. My hand clenched around the phone. My throat burned. I didn't know what to say. So I stayed silent. But deep down, a seed of something stirred. Maybe not anger. Not yet. But a refusal to disappear. You remind me of me. And I wasted decades staying polite. I hadn't been to Grandma Evelyn's in nearly 6 months. The sun was low when I pulled into her driveway that Tuesday evening, streaking golden lines across the cracked pavement. The hedges had grown a little wild, like everything inside had softened, aged, drifted into a quieter sort of defiance. She greeted me with her usual half-smile, the kind that said she knew more than she ever said out loud. Her living room smelled faintly of lemon polish and something older, dusty photo albums, worn wood, decades of unsaid things. Come sit, she said, patting the arm of the couch. I noticed the walls first. Frames in orderly rows, generations captured in still life. Birthdays, weddings, first steps. But one person was conspicuously absent. No pictures of Mom. She noticed me noticing. Denise stopped sending photos after 98, she said simply. I stopped asking. I sat unsure where to start. But she did. You think you're alone in this? Evelyn said, pouring tea like she had all the time in the world. You're not. She leaned back, teacup in hand, and her eyes, sharp behind thin glasses, looked straight through me. I once had a house, she began, a little one up on Willow Lane. My father left it to me because I was the only one who paid the taxes after he passed. But when my brother came back from California, freshly divorced and broke, the family said, he needs it more. She sipped quietly. I gave it up. Didn't want to fight. Thought if I kept the peace, they'd remember my kindness. And did they? I asked. She chuckled low and bitter. They remembered I was easy to forget. That line hit something deep in me, something raw, and nodded. I rented apartments for 30 years, she continued. Watched holiday dinners happen without me. Your mother called when she needed something, but never just to talk. And I let it happen, because I thought being quiet made me good. I looked down. My hands were trembling. Melissa, she said, her voice firmer. Now you remind me of me. And I wasted decades staying polite. I didn't speak. I couldn't. She stood, slowly walked over to an old writing desk, and opened the top drawer. From within, she pulled a folder, thick manila, worn at the edges, and placed it in my lap. What's this? Something I started years ago. The house you bought, don't think I haven't followed every update you've sent, Rachel. Her eyes softened. I want you to keep it. I want you to know you're not crazy or selfish or hard. Inside the folder were clippings, notes, legal printouts, everything from zoning laws to names of housing attorneys. And on top of it all, a crisp, cream-colored business card. Henry A. Dawson, Esquire, Property and Family Law. Henry's been my attorney for years, Evelyn said. He helped me reclaim some land from my late uncle's estate, long story. But he knows how this works. More importantly, he'll listen. I stared at the card. Why now? I asked. Evelyn smiled gently. Because you're the first woman in this family who might actually win. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving dew on the window panes and a silence that felt like permission. I've lived long enough to see silence used as both shield and noose, she said. You still have time to choose differently. I held the folder close, feeling its weight, legal, emotional, ancestral. Then she handed me the card again, firmer this time. See him? Tomorrow. Henry said, you don't need to fight them loud. You just need to fight them smart. The elevator glided open to the third floor of a modest building tucked behind a row of tall oaks. Henry's office was quiet, understated. Books lined the walls in orderly precision. A vintage clock ticked softly in the background, and a warm light filtered in through linen blinds. No receptionist. Just Henry standing at the door with a small nod and a measured, steady gaze. Melissa Carter. He greeted, his handshake firm, but not overbearing. Come in. I've set aside the morning for you. There was something about his presence that immediately settled my nerves. He wasn't flashy. He didn't need to be. He exuded the kind of confidence that came from 30 years of protecting people who didn't know they needed protecting until it was almost too late. We sat across from each other at a wide mahogany desk. I clutched the folder I'd brought, printouts of emails, bank transfers, screenshots of text messages. Evelyn had warned me not to come empty-handed. I'm not sure where to start, I said. Wherever you stopped believing it was a misunderstanding, he replied, uncapping his pen. So I did. I told him about the housewarming, the subtle digs, Amber's voice, claiming rooms for her children. I told him about the years of financial help that had never been repaid, the mounting pressure from my mother, and the sudden wave of online comments after Amber's post made it look like I was gifting her the house. He didn't interrupt. He simply made notes, flipping pages in a yellow legal pad. Have they put anything in writing? He asked. Yes. Texts, mostly. My mom said the house is big enough for all of us. Amber wrote that she knew I'd do the right thing. Any money sent recently? Several times, I said. I covered Amber's attorney during her divorce. Paid to fix our parents' roof. Sent money when their car broke down. Henry tapped his pen against the desk. You may not realize it, but you've built a timeline. A pattern of financial dependency they'll have a hard time denying. He leaned back. Now we start building yours. He slid a sheet of paper across the desk. It listed everything I'd need to collect transaction dates, recipient accounts, any public posts, or voice memos. We don't strike yet, he said. We let them move, but we make sure they walk straight into it. My phone buzzed. A message from Rachel. Sending you something, just listen. Attached was a voice recording. Mind if I play this? I asked. He nodded once. Amber's voice crackled over the speaker, unmistakably smug. I'll take that room. She won't stop me. I looked up. Henry's expression didn't change, but he underlined something on his pad. This will be useful, he murmured. They're already treating your property as theirs. This isn't a family misunderstanding. This is positioning. For the next hour, we reviewed every piece of evidence. Henry emphasized discretion. No reacting online, no engaging emotionally. The more silent you are now, the stronger your testimony later. I walked out with 2 folders, one marked defense, one blank. That's for the next step, he said. You'll know when to fill it. Outside, the afternoon air was heavy with mist, the sky dull steel. Everything felt like it was about to break open. My phone buzzed again. Rachel, are you okay? I stared at the message a long time before typing, not yet. But I'm building the wall before they try to tear it down. That night, I laid everything out on the kitchen table, folders, USB drives, annotated printouts, sticky notes. The house once, my sanctuary, now felt like a temporary war room. I scanned every message again this time, not as a sister or daughter, but as someone preparing to protect what she built. I pulled up Amber's Facebook post again, the one still gaining traction. A new comment had appeared from someone I didn't know. Wow, what a generous sister. Wish mine was like that. It wasn't malicious, just ignorant, but it still felt like a kick to the ribs. I hovered over the comment, then closed the app entirely. Not today. Rachel texted again. Did he take you seriously? I replied. He listened, and he's watching now, waiting for them to move. Then they're in for a surprise, she wrote. I wasn't sure yet if I was ready for war, but for the first time, I had a map, a guide, a way out that didn't require screaming or begging or losing my dignity in public. The silence wasn't passive anymore. It was strategic. Henry said, only one more push from them, and I'll have grounds to strike back. If they couldn't get the house quietly, they'd shame me into surrendering. The morning sunlight hadn't yet crept past the blinds when I heard the first buzz. Then another, and another. By the time I rubbed the sleep from my eyes, my phone screen was a flurry of notifications, tags, messages, and comments. Something had exploded online. Rachel had already texted, do not read the comments yet. Call me first. I didn't. I opened Facebook. Amber had posted a long, emotionally charged status paired with a picture of her kids sitting solemnly on a secondhand couch, my old couch, I realized. The caption read, we never asked for much, just a roof for the children. But when family shuts the door, you're forced to speak your truth. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. Most of them were from strangers furious on her behalf. She has a house, and still said no. What kind of sister is that? If my niece and nephews needed shelter, I'd sleep in the garage if I had to. Some didn't even try to hide the venom. Cold-hearted, selfish. She needs to grow a soul. Denise had jumped into the thread too casually, confirming the story like a second-hand witness. We raised Melissa better than this. But the city changed her. My stomach clenched as I kept reading. It was as if they were building a case in the court of public opinion, casting me as the cruel one, the privileged one, the villain. Rachel called. I'm driving over. No, I said flatly. Stay put. You can't let them control the narrative. You have to post a response, set the record straight, and say what I snapped. That I paid for their rent, their car, repairs, their legal fees, that I bought the very couch those kids are sitting on. Yes, she shouted. Exactly that. I stared at the screen again, then turned it face down on the counter. I'm not going to fight this with emotions. That's what they expect. That's what they want. Rachel hesitated. So what now? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have one, but because I already knew who I needed to call. 15 minutes later, Henry's voice crackled on the other end of the line. They made it public, Amber posted. Denise backed her. They're framing me as some sort of ice queen. They just handed us everything I needed, Henry said calmly. Screenshot all of it. I'll prepare a cease and desist. And more. He paused, then added, by going public and naming you directly, they've opened the door. This isn't just family drama anymore. It's character defamation. I let out a long, shaky breath. They won't back down. Neither will we, he replied. That afternoon, I signed a formal request for reputation protection and authorized Henry to notify both Amber and Denise with a legal warning. It wasn't a lawsuit, not yet, but it was a shot across the bow. I expected them to go silent. Instead, Denise called. Melissa, she said coldly, skipping any pleasantries. You've changed. I don't recognize you anymore. I gripped the phone tight. My voice didn't shake this time. I didn't say sorry. I didn't explain. She did, though. You've become someone distant, bitter. You're not the daughter we knew. You have become a stranger. The house wasn't just mine anymore. It was now a battlefield, and my name was on every wall. The air inside Evelyn's house was thick with purpose. Golden light streamed in through the long curtains, catching dust motes that floated lazily like forgotten memories. I sat across from her at the old oak dining table, a pen in my hand and a growing weight in my chest. Henry adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. We'll read through this together, he said, unfolding a set of typed pages with the kind of precision that made every movement feel like a ceremony. This is the final draft? When you're ready, Evelyn? Evelyn didn't hesitate. She took the document and began to read aloud, her voice steady, despite the tremor in her hands. I, Evelyn Monroe, being of sound mind and memory, declare this to be my last will and testament. I tried to keep my breathing even, but the words kept sinking into me like stones. This wasn't just paper and ink, it was history being rewritten, a declaration that for once I wasn't invisible. She continued, the house located at 57 Laurel Avenue will pass solely to Melissa Monroe. Furthermore, a trust account containing the remaining estate assets shall be established under her name with the intention of preserving financial independence and intergenerational security. I blinked hard. I wasn't used to this kind of validation, public legal permanent. It felt like standing in the sun after years in the shade. Henry nodded approvingly, his eyes scanning the page. Everything is clear. Now, the letter. Evelyn reached for a second envelope, this one handwritten. She looked me dead in the eye. This isn't just for you, Melissa. This is for them. She opened the envelope and read aloud, voice sharper now. Denise, Amber, I am making these decisions not out of spite, but out of clarity. I have watched too long as Melissa was expected to give while receiving nothing. If you continue your campaign to discredit her or make any further attempts to seize control of her home, I will move to transfer all remaining assets to her immediately. Consider this your final warning. She placed the letter back in the envelope and sealed it slowly, pressing her thumb over the flap, as if locking in decades of silence. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling something I hadn't realized I was holding inside. You really think this will stop them? I think it'll give them pause, Evelyn said, and maybe for the first time make them question whether you're someone they can push. Rachel's text came in as we finished packing up the documents. Amber's deleting her posts. Guess the wind's changing. I stared at the screen. Amber never backtracked. If she was scrubbing her timeline, it meant she was scared, or at least uncertain. For the first time in weeks, my pulse slowed. I wasn't winning yet, but I had a shield now. And someone had drawn a line in ink. I looked around Evelyn's house. Pictures of relatives' books in tall shelves, lace doilies under everything. It felt like a place where stories had lived too long in whispers. But not anymore. Not after today. You didn't have to do this, I said quietly. Evelyn smiled not kindly, but with something fiercer. That's where you're wrong. I had to. For both of us. Henry slipped his copy of the signed will into his briefcase. This is the opening move. Don't be surprised if they test you one more time. Test me how I asked. He glanced up, his expression unreadable. The same way they always have. With guilt. With stories. With pressure. But now they'll know it won't come without consequences. He handed me a sealed copy of the letter. Keep this. And if they call you again, don't argue. Just remind them they're not the only ones who know how to write things down. As we stood to leave, Evelyn rested her hand on my arm. From now on, Melissa, you speak first. Don't let them narrate your life for you. I nodded, tucking the letter into my purse like armor. I didn't know what came next, but for the first time, I wasn't just reacting. I was ready. Henry said, "Prepare yourself. They may try one last time." They came thinking I would crumble. I came with paperwork and a straight spine. The courthouse was unassuming, just a brick building tucked between a closed-down diner and a dry cleaner with a flickering neon sign. But inside it felt cavernous. Every step down that hallway echoed like the floor itself wanted to announce my arrival. I wore navy blue. No frills, no jewelry. Just a suit that fit well and shoes that didn't click too loudly. Rachel sat in the back row of the small courtroom, hands clasped in her lap, eyes locked on me like a silent anchor. Henry walked beside me, with calm certainty, holding a thin folder. Amber and Denise were already seated on the opposite side. Amber wore a pastel blouse expression, rehearsed to show innocence. Denise had her arms crossed, lips pursed like the whole thing was an inconvenience. The judge, a silver-haired woman named Meredith Klein, entered with a quiet authority that silenced the entire room in a breath. She glanced at the docket, then at me. "Ms. Melissa Monroe, you're seeking a temporary restraining order on residential interference." Henry stood. "Yes, Your Honor. On behalf of my client, we are presenting evidence of coercion, digital defamation, and repeated attempts to misappropriate her home under the guise of familial obligation." He handed over the file. Inside, printed screenshots of Amber's social media posts, one calling the house our new beginning, another thanking a generous sister. Next, transcripts of texts from Denise, including the line, "This house is big enough for all of us, you know that." And finally, a recording of Amber during the housewarming party. "That'll be your room, sweetheart. It's already ours." I didn't flinch when the audio played, but my stomach knotted as I saw the brief flash of recognition in Amber's face. She knew she'd been recorded. Amber stood up quickly. "Your Honor, that was a misunderstanding. We were joking. This is just a family issue. We never meant any harm." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Then why were there multiple public statements implying the property had been transferred? And why did you delete those posts only after a letter of legal intent was delivered?" Denise interjected, voice cold. "She's overreacting. Melissa has always been sensitive. We were simply trying to keep the family together." I stood up before Henry could stop me. "I've stayed quiet most of my life. I began voice even. I've paid bills no one thanked me for. I sent money when my father's car broke down, when Amber's lawyer needed to be paid. I listened when I was told to be understanding, to be quiet, to be kind. And now that I've finally built something for myself, I'm expected to hand it over without hesitation." I turned toward the judge. "I didn't file this because of one post or one text. I filed this because I realized my silence was being used against me." A hush fell over the room. The judge leaned back. "Thank you, Ms. Monroe. That was clear. Mr. Wells, I'll need a moment to review this." We waited in taut silence as she flipped through the folder again, lips pressed into a thin line. Then she spoke. "Given the nature of the documentation and the respondent's deletion of digital content, I am granting the temporary restraining order. Effective immediately, no individual other than Melissa Monroe is permitted to enter or occupy the property at 57 Laurel Avenue without her written consent. This order will remain in place until further review." I closed my eyes. For the first time, it felt like I was allowed to breathe. Amber hissed under her breath as the courtroom began to empty. She thinks she's won. This isn't over. I didn't respond. Not anymore. Her anger was no longer mine to carry. Outside the courtroom, Rachel was waiting with eyes wide and glassy. She reached for my hand without a word. When our palms met, she gripped tightly. That was the first time she said softly, "The first time what you didn't back down. You didn't apologize for taking up space." I looked down at our hands. It felt terrifying. She laughed. "You look like steel." Henry joined us a moment later. "Congratulations, Melissa. This puts the power back where it belongs, for now. Will they appeal? Maybe, but they won't expect your next move either." We walked down the courthouse steps together. The sky was overcast, but the light didn't feel heavy. For once, the shadows didn't chase me. I was walking forward, and every step felt earned. At home, I placed the court order on the hallway table. Beneath the family photo, Amber once mocked me for not hanging. The document sat there like a shield, quiet but undeniable. And though I knew more battles might come, I had stopped surrendering by default. The line was drawn, and this time, I had drawn it myself. Amber muttered, "She thinks she can win. This game is not over yet." Amber had her version of the story. Unfortunately for her, I had receipts. I sat cross-legged on Rachel's living room floor, her laptop open in front of me, the soft hum of the air conditioner breaking the silence. The screen glowed with archived snapshots, posts Amber had deleted, but the internet had not. Some were saved by mutual friends, others captured by automated archivers. I hadn't wanted to look, but now I had to. There was the first one, Amber posing on my porch, kids beaming beside her. The caption, "Grateful to start fresh in a home we're blessed with. All self-made. Just us." I stared at the words, jaw tightening. She posted that the morning after the party, Rachel muttered, handing me a cup of lukewarm coffee. She acted like you didn't exist. There was a thread of messages in a Facebook group where Amber wrote about being betrayed by family when help wasn't returned in our time of need. The irony made my head ache. Rachel sat beside me. "You okay?" I nodded. Not surprised anymore. Just documenting. My phone buzzed with a new email. I clicked it open. Subject, "You don't know me, but I think you deserve to see this." Attached was a PDF. The sender, Jamie Willis. I remembered her from old photos, one of Amber's childhood friends who had moved to Arizona years ago. We'd never spoken. The file contained screenshots of private messages. In one, Amber bragged, "All I had to do was cry." She wired the full amount before I finished the sentence. In another, Melissa's too guilt-ridden to say no. "That house she'll fold. Watch." I scrolled in stunned silence. Rachel read over my shoulder. She actually wrote that, "Yeah." Another message. "My lawyer said don't put it in writing." Oops. We laughed, sharp, tired laughter. Rachel shook her head. "You couldn't make this stuff up." I sent the file to Henry immediately. Within minutes he called. "I'll say this clearly," he said. "You now have enough to file for defamation, coercion, even attempted fraudulent claim over property if they keep pushing." I leaned back. "Should I not yet? But be ready." Rachel reached for a red folder. "Here. Print it. Keep a hard copy. Let her keep digging her own hole." I nodded. "Let's save it." "But not for revenge." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Then for what?" "For protection. For truth." I hit print. Page after page slid out, ink drying slowly on each confession, each lie, each damning timestamp. On the last page, I took a marker and scrawled in bold uppercase letters, "To be used only when necessary." We sat in silence. After that, the printer humming like a quiet warning. Outside, the sky was the color of tin, dull, overcast, full of storm, but not yet rain. Rachel glanced over. "You sure you're okay?" I gave a half smile. "Better than I thought I'd be." "What are you going to do now?" I looked at the folder. "Take back the narrative. They've had the mic too long." Rachel leaned back. "You're not going to post anything, are you?" "No," I said. "I'm going to speak. Where it matters." Her eyes narrowed in curiosity. "Where?" But before I answered, I stood and gathered the folder. The weight of it was real, not just paper, but proof, memory, motive, a line between silence and truth. Some stories I said can't be fought with more stories. They need to be shown on paper, in voice, with facts. Rachel followed me to the door, still puzzled. You're planning something. I am. She paused, then smiled slowly. You're not the same woman I met 8 years ago. No, I said. That woman would have handed over the keys and apologized for the door squeaking. Rachel laughed. And this one. She's about to open a door they can't close. Later that night, I sat at my own kitchen table with the folder beside me. I didn't scroll, didn't refresh, didn't look to see what Amber or Denise might be saying online. Their noise had always been loud, but now I had clarity. A quieter kind of power. When the message from Jamie first came in, I'd expected something messier, something more dramatic. Instead, what I received was honesty. Neutral, unfiltered. She hadn't defended me, but she hadn't protected Amber either. That neutrality, I realized, was more powerful than loyalty. I opened my laptop, clicked into a blank document, and began typing a title, Family Truth and What I Couldn't Say Until Now. The room was still. No applause, no comments. Just the quiet tap of my fingers, claiming a space I'd never felt allowed to take before. It was time to speak. But not in their arena. In mine. Rachel, I called softly from the kitchen. She poked her head in. Yeah, I smiled. What do you think of a community meeting? Her eyebrows shot up. Oh, they'll hate that. I know. She grinned. Then I love it. Rachel asked. What are you planning next? I answered. To take back my voice. In a place they can't erase my name. They asked who gave me the right? I said, I built it. The sun hung low over the brick building of the Charlotte Public Library, casting long shadows across the marble steps. A banner stretched over the main entrance community room dedication, Evelyn and Melissa Carter Room. I stood beneath it, smoothing the front of my navy blue dress, my heart steady for the first time in months. Inside the room smelled faintly of new carpet and polished wood. Soft light poured through wide windows onto shelves already filled with books, art prints of pioneering women on the walls. In the corner, a small plaque gleamed in gold, Evelyn and Melissa Carter Room, for women who rise quietly. Rachel nudged my arm. You sure you want your full name up there? I'm sure I said watching people file in, some curious, some touched. For the first time, I'm not hiding behind anyone else's legacy. Evelyn sat in the front row cane, resting beside her. Her posture was upright eyes, sharp despite her years. I'd seen her softer side. But today, she wore her strength like a crown. I caught her glance. She nodded once. I stepped up to the small podium. I won't speak long, I began. This room isn't about me, but I want to say one thing I spent a long time being told to keep quiet, to stay small, to not make a fuss. Today, I'm simply making space. For women like me. For the girl I used to be. Applause rippled gently through the room. I felt Rachel's hand brush my back as I stepped down. That was when I saw her, Amber. She stood near the doorway, not dressed for attention, just a plain white blouse, jeans, and her hair tied back. She didn't speak. She didn't wave. Her eyes scanned the room, resting last on the plaque. I watched as her gaze lingered, softened, then shimmered with something, maybe regret, maybe resentment. I didn't know. I didn't need to. She turned away before anyone could speak to her. I didn't follow. Evelyn rose slowly from her seat and came to stand beside me. She didn't speak either, just placed her hand on my shoulder. We stood like that, while guests explored the space we had made real. A local reporter approached hesitantly. Ms. Carter Melissa, do you mind if we do a quick piece? This room, your journey, it's resonant. I smiled, surprised but calm. Sure. She positioned the camera microphone clipped to my collar. In one sentence, what does today mean to you? I looked at the lens and said, I didn't lose my family. I just stopped letting them define what family meant. The reporter blinked, then smiled. That's going to resonate with a lot of people. She thanked me, packed up her equipment, and melted into the crowd. Rachel handed me a lemonade from the refreshment table, her eyes scanning my face. You okay? She asked. I nodded. More than okay. Around us, The room buzzed with quiet energy readers flipping through books, a teenage girl snapping a photo in front of the mural, two older women exchanging stories in the reading nook. It was working, not just as a room, but as a sanctuary. A middle-aged man in a librarian's badge approached. "Miss Carter, we're scheduling community sessions for the summer writing workshop support circles women-led talks. Would you consider leading one?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I'd like that." Later, after most of the guests had trickled out, Rachel and I remained standing in the center of the room. Evelyn had already left her energy preserved for the next day. Rachel touched the nameplate again. "You know what this means, don't you?" I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't just survive them, you outgrew them." I smiled, and I finally gave that girl in me a place to sit down. We walked toward the exit, locking the doors behind us. Outside, the wind stirred gently. The sun had dipped behind the trees, but the sky glowed with afterlight. As we reached the parking lot, Rachel glanced over. "So, what now?" I paused, looking back at the building, the banner, the plaque. "Now," I said, "I build more rooms with my name on them. No more headlines, no more posts, just peace and choices I made on my own." The morning sun spread gold across the patio, filtered gently through the wide leaves of the crepe myrtle I'd planted just a year ago. It was early June, and Charlotte had begun to warm in that sweet, generous way it always did before the summer scorched everything. I was barefoot watering the herbs along the fence basil mint, and something Rachel insisted was time, but I still wasn't sure. The quiet felt earned. I hadn't heard from Amber in weeks. No more vague social media posts, no more indirect jabs. Her accounts had gone silent. Denise hadn't called again either, not since the court order held, and Evelyn's letter made its point. For the first time in years, the silence wasn't loaded with anticipation or dread. It was relief. Inside the mailbox, tucked between a flyer for lawn care and a credit card offer, was a cream-colored envelope with Evelyn's handwriting. I smiled the moment I saw it. On the porch, I sliced it open carefully with my thumb. "Melissa," it read. "I've lived long enough to know that storms don't always leave broken things behind. Sometimes they reveal what was already whole and just waiting to breathe. This is the first time in my life I've seen a woman be heard without needing to shout. That's power, and it's yours now. Love, E." Rachel pulled into the driveway with her usual flare one wheel, nudging the curb music pulsing low. She emerged with a paper bag in one hand and a smirk on her face. "Blueberry scones," she announced. "Still warm." We sat on the porch steps, splitting the scones over napkins, sipping lukewarm coffee, reading Evelyn's letter again out loud. I felt her presence in every word. Rachel leaned her shoulder against mine. "You good?" I nodded. "Better than I've been in years." She looked out at the yard. No news from the Queen or the heir. Nope. "Mom called last week." I let it ring. It felt right. Not angry. Just done. Rachel gave a satisfied hum. After breakfast, I invited her inside. We passed the hallway where I'd hung my court order in a plain white frame. Not to show off, just so I'd never forget how hard I fought to stay here. Then I opened the door to the room that had once been claimed without asking Amber's kids, they'd said. Just temporary, they'd said. It was mine now. Sunlight filtered through gauzy curtains onto a thick rug, and the beginnings of a home library. I had 3 shelves up a reading chair Rachel helped me thrift, and on the far wall, I'd mounted a carved wooden sign, "Melissa's Corner." It wasn't much, but it was mine. Not earned through struggle, kept through peace. Rachel stepped in, looking around. "This used to be the room, huh?" I nodded. "Now it's a place I don't owe anyone." She traced the edge of a bookshelf. "You ever think about writing the whole story down? Start to finish?" I paused, fingers on the spine of a novel I'd read a dozen times. Then I smiled. "I already started." Rachel grinned. "Of course you did. Title it? How Not to Give Away Your House." I laughed, the kind that came from deep in the belly, the kind that healed something. I was thinking something quieter. Like, What I Kept. "That works too," she said softly. Later that evening, after Rachel had gone and the cicadas had begun to hum, I sat again in Melissa's Corner with my laptop open. Not to doom scroll, not to defend myself, but to write. I started with one sentence. This is how I stayed. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I owed an explanation to anyone. Outside, the wind picked up slightly, rustling the leaves. The world was still turning, but now it felt like I was moving with it. Not chasing, not resisting. Just, finally, home. They drew a line between us, so I built a bridge they couldn't cross. Corlink Hall shimmered under the late summer light, its glass facade casting golden reflections across the marble floor. The crowd inside moved with quiet energy, press passes, swinging murmurs trailing through the air like dust in sunbeams. Somewhere behind the curtains, I stood in a tailored navy suit gripping the corners of my note cards. My palms were dry, my breath steady. Rachel sat in the second row, her red blouse unmistakable among a sea of muted tones. She gave me a wink, subtle and solid, our unspoken pact intact. Evelyn had called that morning. Her voice, thin but unwavering, reached me from her sunlit living room. Today, she said they won't just see you, they'll know you. When the stage lights dimmed, my cue came. I stepped forward. Good evening, I began, letting my voice echo gently. I'm Melissa Carter. Some of you know that name, some don't, and that's fine. A few heads turned. The rustle in the hall stilled. I was told once that I didn't belong on a list, that my presence would make others uncomfortable. I let the word settle before continuing. But discomfort is not a weakness. It's a teacher. And silence, when chosen, can thunder louder than any scream. The slide behind me lit up. The Carter Foundation for Silent Strength, founded by Melissa Carter. Tonight, we honor not just achievement, but endurance. This scholarship will support young women entering engineering and technology fields where quiet strength is often invisible. This is for them. For every girl who solved problems while being told to stay quiet. For every woman who held a family together without applause. I scanned the crowd. Rachel was tearing up her hand over her heart. I didn't get here by shouting. I got here by standing still when others tried to push me out. And now, I choose to stay visible. I choose to make space so others won't have to fight this hard. A young woman stepped onto the stage beside me. Her hands trembled slightly as she took the mic. Her voice was soft, but sure. I chose my major because I saw your name on a plaque at the library, she said, meeting my eyes. I figured if she could be there, maybe I can too. The applause rose like a wave. Not loud, but full, solid, real. After the ceremony, I walked off stage and through the side corridor, still holding my note cards like a talisman. That's when I saw her. Amber. She stood near the exit, half hidden behind a column. No makeup, no crowd around her, just her. She didn't move closer, didn't speak. Her hands were clasped, her eyes dropped not in shame, but in recognition. Not a word passed between us. I kept walking. Not out of pride, but peace. I didn't need her validation anymore. Outside, the evening air was soft against my skin. The world kept moving, people rushing to dinners, calls, headlines. But somewhere inside Corlink Hall, my name had been spoken, recorded, remembered. They couldn't cross this bridge because they never built it. But I did, every inch of it. And I walked across it alone, finally free. If you've come this far with me, thank you. This story wasn't just about a house. It was about a woman reclaiming the right to exist without apology. If any part of my journey reminded you of your own, I hope you'll share it. Leave me a message. Tell me what you would have done in my place, or what you wish someone had told you when your silence was mistaken for weakness. And if you're standing at your own threshold, unsure whether to stay quiet or take the next step, do it. Choose yourself. Quiet strength is still strength. I'm living proof.